Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Social Club at the End of the World. I want to introduce everyone and then go over the agenda for today. Welcome, Adam, from the great state of Washington, where I'm also signing in from. Welcome, Dan, from Chicago. Welcome, Miles, from Calgary, Canada. And we may get some other folks on. Hopefully we will. And one thing I want to say right from the get-go is that this meeting is open to everyone, open to the general public. And you can join by clicking the link to join, which I've posted on my Facebook page and also on my Google Plus page. And so with that, let me pause for a moment so people can say hello and just take a few seconds and say hello, anything about where you're at, where you're coming from, and then we'll get rolling with the agenda. So welcome, everyone. I'm going on mute so you all can say hello to the world.
Well, I'll say hello first of all. And I'm Miles calling in from Calgary, Alberta. And I'd like to acknowledge that I'm on Treaty 7 territory of the Blackfoot Confederacy. And just to share something that I find particularly inspirational, there's a poem by the Chief Crowfoot, who signed in 1877 the Treaty 7. It's a short little poem. What is life? What is life? It is the flash of a firefly in the night. It is the breath of the buffalo in the wintertime. It is the little shadow which runs across the grass and loses itself in the sunset. So once again, hello from Mohkinstsis, which is also known as Calgary.
Beautiful. Thank you, Miles. You want to unmute again?
Yeah, this is Dan from Chicago, and great to be here talking about climate change solutions and other topics which are kind of relevant to all of this, and I'm ready to go.
Awesome. Thank you, Dan. Go ahead, Adam.
This is Adam Soul in Washington, and I'm happy to be here with all of you and such prestigious, wonderful minds. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Adam, for being here. All righty. Since everyone's had a chance to say hello, I will go over the agenda for this meeting that we've discussed previously, and in the future, we'll hash this out over email. But the agenda is, first of all, kind of the rules of order of the Social Club at the End of the World, which have been evolving. And I thought it'd be a good time to just kind of maybe formalize that a little bit, not too much. Second are the goals of the Social Club at the End of the World. What are we setting out to achieve here? And then third, an open discussion on how will we go about, how do we plan on achieving these goals? And then finally, any other topics. And in the other section, it's any topic you want to bring up at any time during that phase of the meeting. So any questions or comments on the agenda before we get started with the first agenda item? Going on mute.
Yeah, well, let me just repeat what you said, see if is that all right, Mile?
Go ahead, yeah.
So the agenda is first the rules, and then we'll list some goals, and then we talk about achieving the goals. And then you said that we could interject other ideas for discussion. Is that then after we finish the other agenda items? Or?
Exactly. Once we've completed, to everyone's satisfaction, the first three agenda items, if we even complete them, and by default, anything we don't complete on this meeting, we kick over to the next one. I'm just saying after that, any other topics anyone else would like to introduce, that would be the time for that. Did I answer your question there, Adam? Okay, great. Any other questions or comments about the agenda before we dive into the first item?
I was just going to say you have an iPad, and for some reason I don't see comments. Anyway, I'm switching to a different device.
Okay. Here, I'm just going to post a comment just so you can see them. Hello, Miles. Do you see that comment on your screen that I just posted?
I do now that I activated a Chromebook, but on my iPad, for some reason, I don't see comments.
Yeah. For some reason, iPad doesn't seem to have the full functionality as a Chromebook or a MacBook or whatever. Anyway, so very good. Glad you can see those. And can you type a test comment just so we can see you typing a comment? Okay, perfect. Got that. Hello. Got it. Okay, great. All right. Any other questions or comments about the agenda before we dive into the first agenda item? All right. Looks like there are none. So let's jump in first. The first topic is rules of order. And the first rule of order I'd like to introduce or propose is the 5-minute rule. So whenever someone has something to say and it's their turn to speak, that they go ahead and speak for as long as they want, up to a maximum of 5 minutes. Now, I just want to clarify, by the way, I'm hearing some echo there, Miles. If you want to mute your microphone, that would be awesome. And you're still on your other device, Miles, so there's 2 of you, which is no problem, but I just wanted you to know that. So does anyone have any questions or comments about, here's what I wanted to say about that, is, let's say that you hit your 5-minute window, your 5-minute ceiling, and, the moderator, in this case myself for today, would notify you of that. That does not mean that you have to shut up for the rest of the meeting or anything of the sort. In fact, feel free to cue yourself up again if you want to keep talking, but at least it puts a cap on any one given monologue for a maximum of 5 minutes. And then your next turn to talk, you're free to go for another 5 minutes if you need it. Anyway, that's what I would propose the rule to be. Does anyone have any questions or comments, more importantly, about that proposed rule of a 5-minute rule?
Yeah, it sounds good. And the idea being that it's going to lead to more participation and kind of more input from everyone. I would just reflect on past meetings, and sometimes there can be a gap. In other words, let's say I speak for 5 minutes, and ideally somebody else is going to want to jump in, and it's going to be, getting queued up, and that'll work really well. Sometimes, there may be situations where somebody is speaking for 5 minutes, which in a way seems like a okay block of time, but it sometimes, it depends maybe on what somebody is saying. And if the person speaks the 5 minutes, they get queued, your 5 minutes is up, and you end it, the thought process may not be completed. And then if there are 4 or 5 people who've already queued in, who may be having some other things, that it could be a little bit stressful. But I think a good idea would be to, just pilot it and see if it works. It sounds good. And, just to see how it actually unfolds in real time as we do it.
Yeah, sounds good. So basically what I heard you say, Dan, was let's give it a try, right? It could have some, it's definitely got some pros. It could have some cons, as you identified, but let's give it a try is the bottom line of what I heard you say. Okay, good. Thank you, Dan. Any other questions or comments before about the proposed 5-minute rule? All righty. with no further questions or comments, I propose we just put it to vote. All those in favor, please either say aye or probably more effectively just raise your hand or a thumbs up. Okay. And Miles, okay, good. So 4 out of 4 participants are approving the 5-minute rule. So I'm going to find a little makeshift gavel here. I'll just use this teacup and go, okay, that's enacted, the 5-minute rule. And I volunteer to be the enforcer of the rule. So beware the wrath of Jamin should you go. No, I'm just kidding. If it's okay to accidentally go over 5 minutes, I'll just gently do like this. And if that doesn't get your attention, I'll start speaking over you. And if that doesn't get your attention, I may go so far as to throw something at my own screen. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But anyway, we will have enforcement. It's not just a rule on paper. All right. With that, that's the 5-minute rule. Enough on that topic. The next proposed item of order or rule of order for the meetings is that we have an agenda, and that we draft this agenda via email prior to the meeting, and so that everyone has access to it and everyone has input on it, and that we basically, that we discuss the agenda at the beginning of the meeting, just as we just did, and then after discussing it and ultimately reaching agreement or consensus or majority consensus on it, then we proceed to work the agenda. Any questions or comments on my proposal that we essentially agenda-ize the Social Club at the End of the World meetings, which is not something we'd really done too much of before. We've done a little bit of before. But anyway, any questions or comments on that? Going on mute.
Yeah, I have a comment. So if we have an agenda, will help us get organized. And so these meetings are a little bit pointless unless we get organized and decide what we're going to do. So we need to develop some kind of action list out of this agenda, it seems to me like, and so we can be focused and actually get somewhere. That's my thoughts.
Okay, I have a question there. So when you say action list coming out of the agenda, does that mean at the end of each agenda item that we discuss, that we have a space for actions to be articulated and perhaps volunteers to volunteer to take those actions? Is that what you're saying, Adam?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm wondering if everybody else agrees.
I like it. I like it personally. I like the idea of adding an action list at the end of every agenda item. I mean, to the extent that there are actions to take. Like with the 5-minute rule, we voted on it, the gavel was pounded, and it's simply implemented. But for other things, other agenda items where there might be actions, I think it's just a good idea to have a space for that and say, hey, are there any actions that are, that we'd like to articulate or commit to? Going on mute.
Yeah, I'm okay with that in principle. Again, just see how that actually unfolds. I do want to also point, from my point of view, one of the good things about this kind of a forum, at least is the way it's been, is there's kind of a role modeling function that there is here, where, here we are, Social Club at the End of the World, different individuals getting together, some very, very frequently, talking about things and having a conversation and having it be more organized, more goal-oriented. Again, in theory, sounds okay, and we can see how it unfolds. But I do want to say that just even having a conversation among people who are aware of what's going on in and of itself is kind of a role model of having a conversation. And so again, let's see how things actually unfold as we become more, I guess, disciplined and organized within the confines of this forum.
Sure. And just to add on to what you were just saying there, Dan, is for me, a perfectly valid agenda item is, let's just have a chat about what's going on in the world, right? Period. Just an open discussion about, what's going on in the world. Today we have on the agenda coming up very shortly, what are our goals for the social club at the end of the world? So anyway, that for me, that's an example of, a pretty open topic. How to achieve those goals, another very open topic. So anyway, I'm saying we can have this open flow and have order at the same time. Does that make sense? I know I see you laughing, and a thumbs up. So that tells me that makes sense to you. Okay, very good. And Miles is up next. On to you, Miles. Go on mute.
Thank you, Jamin. Yeah, with respect to action items, for me, what I need to express is that we have to be careful, or I will be careful to withdraw when we are moving into action items that are going beyond a social interaction. And where I'm coming from with this is actually a great American named Henry Robert, and he created Robert's Rules. And at some point, it has to be clear when we're into a meeting that's an organizational meeting, moving towards whatever this radish.org is going to become, a legal entity with a charter, with directors, and legally constituted, recognized in some jurisdiction as a corporate citizen, so to speak. And so that's my position, and I don't profess to be an expert on Henry Robert and all his rules. There's the 700 and some pages about how organizational meetings are to occur, and then you move on to formulating a structure with directors and such. So that's my caution, and the reason for it is I don't necessarily agree with everything that everybody is saying here, and consequently I'm not comfortable to say that the representations of Radish will represent my beliefs or any individual on Radish. So that's where I just have a bit of a concern. You do have to move from social to eventually duly constituted organization. Anyway, with that, I'll go on mute.
All righty. Well, I'm up next, so I'll take the floor. And by the way, you all know just to type in your name if you want to take the floor next. So very good comments, Miles. One thing I'll comment is that the social club at the end of the world does not equate to radish.org. This series of conversations that we're having on the social club will be posted on Radish. But that does not mean that, the views, opinions, etc. expressed on the social club are those of Radish or vice versa. And also when we talk about action items and whatnot, that's a completely voluntary thing. So if, Adam says, hey, I propose we take this action, that does not mean that all of us are by default committed to that action. You can respectfully oppose, you can passionately oppose, or you can just go silent on it. Anyway, those are the comments I wanted to make. Going on mute. And by the way, when I say going on mute, that means by default that no one else is queued up yet to speak. Dan just queued himself up, so we go to Dan. But if Dan hadn't queued himself up, it'd be totally fine for anyone to jump in at that moment. That's another kind of mini rule that I'm proposing. Anyway, feel free to comment on that or anything else. Back to you, Dan.
Yeah, guys, something came up. I'm going to have to leave. And I just want to, again, underline It sounds like there's going to be something positive that's going to come out of this today. And I would just ask that don't forget my thought about setting a certain time, that would be a regular time every Tuesday where we're actually going to get together. And I trust all you guys to work this out in a very positive way. And I look forward to seeing you next week.
Great to see you, Dan. I hope everything goes
okay.
well.
Take care. Thank you.
Yeah. You too, Dan. Take care, and we'll see you soon. Okay. I have some comments on that, but Adam is up next, so on to you, Adam.
Well, I just wanted to say I agree with Dan on having a scheduled time and keeping to that. And I also I agree with Dan on the open format. But I also agree that an agenda is helpful because it helps to keep us a little bit more focused. And I also agree with Miles that we can't ask people to do things that would be uncomfortable to them, and that's not the point. It's just like say Miles brings up an interesting topic about the Indians he's working with, and and reflects an opportunity there. And we say, well, can you do a little research on that and get back to us next week? And then so that might be something like that is what I'm envisioning. So that's it.
Very good. Okay, well, I'm up next. So, and by the way, there's just 3 of us now, so we probably don't even have to queue up unless there's just like an over demand, in which case definitely feel free to queue yourself up. But yeah, you can have suggestions for action and whatnot, but it's all volunteer, totally voluntary, zero coercion or any kind of pressure to sign up for any kind of action. And we will talk about the regular meeting times next. I just wanted to make sure we complete and bring to a close the item of agendaizing the meetings before we get on to the next topic, which is regular meeting times. On to you, Miles.
Yes, I thought I'd just quickly share what I did this past week was to participate in an event organized by a group down in the United States called Campaign Nonviolence. They had a week-long initiative, and I finally got out on the last day of the initiative. And I had, excuse me as I go off camera here for a second, I had, for what they were worth, little signs such as this one, encouraging people to check out these 3 websites, the one on the bottom there, which is radish.org. And to that end, I'm suggesting to people to enter into dialogue, to start talking. My personal perspective, and one of the reasons why I'm a little bit, or I am reluctant to commit to more than participating socially on this venue, is just because at the same time, I'm very thankful for Radish and what you're doing, and eventually seeing how what I do locally could fit into that. I'm just not prepared to go beyond just being a social member here, insofar as I'm trying to get something formally created here in my city. So if that makes sense. But at the same time, and similarly, like this other group, Scientists Warning, I encourage people to check them out. Stuart Scott was on your program, and that's how I learned about him, and then checking out his website and some of the things that he's involved with. I thought, oh yeah, this is very important too. But by the same token, or with the same comment, I'm not prepared to become a director or more than socially involved with this Scientists Warning. And then Pace Bene is this organization that creates this week of Campaign Nonviolence, and certain resources that they share. It's like, okay, I can use that. But once again, I'm not interested in becoming formally connected other than to say, I agree with these people, what they're trying to do. Maybe at some time in the future, I'll sign up and become a full-fledged member according to their requirements for registration and such. But anyway, I just thought I'd share that idea, and that, I'm taking the message of Radish because I see your vision where it's going, and that I think it's important for us to capture all these conversations that can start going on all around the world, and that we will start to connect the dots, do your swarming concept that you've promoted, and start, saying, okay, let's get some resources going here so that we have sustainability in my local community. Let's get resources to start food security, or, all the myriad of things that we need to do. So anyway, just contributed and going on mute.
Very question.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Adam.
Miles, are you aware of what Jamin's doing with Radish?
I only know what I've seen, right? And only know what I've heard here. And I'm sure there's so much more that he's got going on behind the scenes that I don't have a total appreciation with. Like, for example, he has been working with people in India. I'm not sure where that ended up insofar as the product created there is posted. Is the relationship still going on there, or are we now moving from India to Microsoft? I'm sure there's all sorts of multiple things going on that I'm just seeing the tip of the iceberg about. And that's why I say, even though I don't know everything that he's up to or you're up to in shaking people down there in Washington State and Seattle area, I have faith that, there's great potential there for somebody to start to collect all this stuff and get people coordinated to moving in a productive direction.
Well, I sense that this approach with an agenda is kind of a way to feel out how this social club at the end of the world will progress. And Jamin mentioned the goals, and we've always, for a long time, he's been, showing goals. We've been talking about refreezing the Arctic, different arcologies, doing different things. And these are related to his radical collective intelligence. So it just seems like, we're evolving, and we don't want to lose anybody, I'm sure. So, all of our opinions are I'm sure, well taken into advice. But I can also see how it helps to be a little bit more organized, and I think that's the idea of the agenda. Otherwise, we just go all over the place.
Yeah. And I just wanted to comment on Miles's comment about, that he's just wants to participate socially. That's totally fine. In fact, the very name of this gathering is the Social Club at the End of the World. So as the name implies, there are no gotchas here. Participation is voluntary. There is absolutely no commitment, no implied or expressed commitment of ongoing anything. You show up when you feel like it, and you leave when you feel like it, and etc. So I just wanted to be clear on that. That's where we're coming from. And again, Social Club at the End of the World does not equate to Radish. Radish does not equate to Social Club at the End of the World. Yes, there is substantial overlap in membership, etc. But there is not even any formal membership in Social Club at the End of the World. It's open to everyone. If you're a human being and you've got internet access, you're welcome here. Okay, Miles is up next, going on mute.
Yeah, and I think that this is really good conversation for everybody to hear, who may be just listening in or watches the replay, so that they can feel at ease that when they jump on, that we respect that they're just participating to share ideas. It's a dialogue. We live in a democracy. We have freedom of speech, and this is where we're exercising it. When it comes to actually saying, oh, well, let's organize a demonstration, or let's organize a initiative to say, stop the pipeline being built in British Columbia. That's where it's okay. Now we're going into an area where the organization or whatever somebody's proposing is a concrete action that I might not totally agree with. And I don't necessarily want people to think that, whatever it is, there's certain things that I will only participate in with expression of it in a private ballot, a secret ballot, for example. I may not, at this time, I wouldn't necessarily say whether I'm in favor of this tripling of this pipeline from Alberta to British Columbia, for example. But anyway, that's where the social club, to me, is sharing these ideas. We don't necessarily agree with everything, but there's ideas that it's like, oh yeah, I do agree with at least part of that. For example, Adam coming to the table and talking about money being a poison, I've never thought of it that way. And I'm not maybe fully on board with that, but there's something about that is true. And it's made me stop to think about, with respect to what I may create, that I may say, we need to gather where money is not even in the game. And in fact, that's because of Adam talking about money. And I realized, people do need to have an opportunity where, I don't care, as long as you're of age of majority, you should be able to come and participate in the making decisions as to the direction of our society. And it shouldn't matter whether or not you've got even $10 to pay for a membership. So that, to me, I'm now realizing is important. And it's because of Adam's discussion about, how money is potentially poisonous, but so is water. If you can drink too much water and you can be poisoned by water. So I think we have to, in my opinion, we have to recognize that what Adam is saying is true. At the same time, recognize that money is a reality, and maybe the two have to work in tandem. Maybe we have a structure, an organization where, money is recognized as very dangerous, such that we're not even going to have it as part of our organization. And we need to get people together such that they can exert the influence on the global giant elites, which incidentally, if you have an opportunity, Peter Phillips of Project Censored, he's a professor down in the United States. He's just recently released a book called The Global, let me see if I'm getting it right, The Global Power Elites. And he basically outlines that there's 199 people in charge of the top 17 corporations, transnational corporations of the world, and they control $50 trillion out of a total economy of, I think he said, about estimated 250 trillion. So anyway, the concentration of wealth, this money, is there's gross inequity happening, and there needs to be something that keeps some balance happening. So ecological capitalism is maybe what we need. Ecological capitalism with oversight by everyday people who are not poisoned by money. With that, I'll go on mute.
Very good. Adam, you're up next.
Well, thanks.
I'm sorry. First, I just want to remind everyone, we're still on the topic of agendaizing meetings. And as far as I'm concerned, we've discussed everything we need to discuss about that, but I'm letting you all talk. It looks like we're straying a bit from that topic. I just want to identify that. If anyone has more to say about agendaizing meetings, please say so. If not, I'll draw this topic to a close and get on to the next one. And Adam, you're up next.
Okay, well, I have what I have to say is kind of segues into the next one, which is goals, right?
The next one is regular meeting times, and then we'll get to.
Okay. Well, I'll just hold off then.
Okay, good. Thank you. All right. So is there anything else anyone has to say about agendaizing our meetings and how we do that, which I talked about at the beginning of this topic? All right. Going once, going twice, and good. Okay, so we draw that to a close. We will have agendas for our meetings, and we will stick to them. And then at the end of covering all the stuff on the agenda, it'll be open format. Let me bang the gauntlet so that or the gavel. Okay, now that's formalized. All right. Next is regular meeting times. What time should that be, etc. I just have a couple of opening statements about that. It's true the meeting times have changed a bit. Lately, they've been more start time 11 a.m. Pacific. And what we often do is those of us who join the meeting, we talk a little bit offline before we start broadcasting and recording, just to kind of sync up a little bit. I'd like to try to keep that time down to a minimum so that we can start broadcasting and recording so that folks who want to view can view. But it's as the organizer of these meetings, 11 a.m. Pacific time is what's shaping up to be the best start time for me personally. Prior, in months prior, we had it for many months at around 10 a.m. Pacific time was the usual start time. But anyway, any comments on the start time or regularity thereof of our meetings? One other comment before I go on mute is that there are also some weeks when I just can't make it, and so I just send out a note via email that I won't be able to make it this week. Anyway, just wanted to comment on that. So it's not an absolute every week kind of thing. Though I'm certainly open to other folks leading the meeting if I can't make it. Anyway, with that, I'll go on mute, and Miles is up next.
Yes, with respect to setting a specific time by which everyone can put on their reoccurring calendars and be confident that there'll be predictability and consistency. I think it's an excellent idea, but I appreciate, Jamin, that you're not always able to lead the call. So to that end, would there be some instruction as to how people, and maybe people who don't necessarily want to join us at this time, but who, like, for example, I'm thinking I've done Periscope broadcasts. I'm familiar with Periscope. You can put in a hashtag and it goes up on Twitter, and anybody who's interested in following that hashtag, they will see all your broadcasts where you're conversing with people about a subject. So I just wondering if perhaps with anyone's particular social media savvy, if they might put together a guideline instruction list as to how people could use Periscope to contribute to Radish conversations, how to use Google Hangouts to contribute to the Radish platform, or Facebook Live, because there's these different live streams, and just wondering which would be compatible with your Radish platform. On that, I'll go on mute.
Yeah, those are good questions. That's a separate topic, so I'd like to put that at the end of the agenda as just other media to contribute to Radish. Right now, we're just talking about this one medium, which are live broadcast Google Hangouts, which then get saved as YouTube videos on this channel. So, but I've added that as an agenda item. Yeah.
I'm in favor of a set time, and for you to be able to cascade it to somebody else to launch at that time when you're not available.
Yeah, and I'll just ask for any volunteers to contact me offline if you're interested in doing that. If anyone would like to volunteer for when I'm unavailable to lead the meeting, launch and lead the meeting, if you'd like to volunteer to do so, just let me know. So, we can have that conversation offline. All right. Any other comments or questions about having a set meeting time? And I've proposed 11 a.m. Pacific time on Tuesdays. Okay, I see a thumbs up from Miles, thumbs up from Adam. Okay, and then just one other comment on that is that these meetings often go, a couple hours. They could go an hour and a half. They could go 1 hour. It's just kind of more like, depends on people's interests and energy levels and availability, of course. So, and of course, people can come and go as they wish. Could not be more free and open and, unoppressive in that regard. All right, so it sounds like we've covered that topic of start time. Yeah, go ahead, Adam. Go ahead.
Well, I've just been watching the comments on YouTube, and people would like to have comments possibly talked on or spoken on here. And so I told them I would keep an eye on those comments. And I said also keep in mind that we are following an agenda. So if they have some comment that doesn't follow the agenda, it might not be appropriate. But and if they are listening, so just let them know and that if I don't get to looking at these comments all the time, and you don't either, but maybe. So it's possible that something could slip through. So if it's important, then put it back up there and we'll try to, you know what I'm saying? Do you agree with that, Jamin?
Yeah, definitely. In fact, I actually don't know how to see the comments in real time. I've been able to see the comments after the fact, but I don't even remember how I was able to do that. But so if you've got an easy way of communicating to me right now how I can actually see those comments, that would be awesome.
Well, this show is being broadcast on YouTube right now. So we're talking through Google Hangouts, but if you bring up the YouTube broadcast, you'll see the comments right there. Because you'll have to pause the Google the YouTube broadcast.
Yeah, I'm aware that this is broadcasting as a Google Hangout and through my YouTube channel. I'm aware of all that. I just don't physically know how, like, where do I click to see the comments that people are posting in real time? I just literally do not know where to click or what tab to open up or whatever. So if any of you have input for me as Jamin, click here to see the comments, that would be much appreciated. Otherwise, we can just explore it later. Okay, Miles is up next. On to you, Miles.
Yeah, I just brought up on my iPad the live chat, and I can see it, and I'll say hello to Maria going south. Hey, going south. Great to see you guys. And it's very important. I think we try to stay in touch with the people on YouTube. So thanks for bringing that to our attention, Adam.
Yeah, and as long as I can't see those comments, I appreciate you guys definitely articulating them as they pop up. So please feel free to continue to do that. All right. So I propose that we bring to a close the topic of regular meeting times, 11 a.m. Pacific, and move on to the next topic, which is goals of the social club at the end of the world. Any comments on that? Everybody in agreement? Thumbs up if you are, thumbs down if you're not. Okay, thumbs up. Okay, great. On to the next agenda item, which is goals of the social club at the end of the world. I certainly have my thoughts on that, but I don't want this to be too Jamin-centric, so I'm going to intentionally go on mute. And I don't think anyone is unless I'm mistaken. Anyway, just jump in if you'd like to comment on or have opening thoughts on the goals of the social club at the end of the world. Again, I've got mine, and I'll hold my fire on mine until after you gentlemen have had a chance. Go ahead, Miles.
Yeah, so with respect to goals for the social club at the end of the world, personally, I would like a goal to be that we can just come to the platform and share what we are doing locally, and sometimes maybe even individually. My wife sent me a quotation from Rumi, R-U-M-I, and Rumi said, you know, before you change the world, you need to change yourself. And so for several years now, I've been changing myself first. And that's why my wife sometimes is rather exasperated with me, because I keep telling her I'm going to write an open letter in honor of what Ralph Nader has encouraged people to do, to write your representatives, to write your president. And in my case, I would write our head of state in Canada. But anyway, just one goal is for me to do my local initiative and share it for what it's worth. You know, it's a dream, which is essentially the manifestation of embodied imagination. Embodied imagination to me is taking everything that I've ever heard from anybody and saying, okay, this is how it's been processed in my mind, in my imagination, attribution to you out there, whether it's Maria or whether it's Going South or whether it's Jamin or Adam, that for me, I'm weaving this together, and that's my goal here locally, to try to change myself plus my neighbors.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. That I love that as a goal. That that each member or each participant in the social club at the end of the world can bring to the forum what they're working on locally. I think that's great, and very good. And by the way, I can now see the comments. I figured out how to see the comments. So, but anyway, back to the comment section later. Going on here.
Okay, so we're on goals now, right? So I know RCI has some goals. The Road to Life plan has some goals, and Miles was talking about money and my take on money being a poison, and he said something interesting. He said that that there needs to be a place of refuge where money is not involved. And that's very interesting you said that, because one of the goals of Radical Collective Intelligence is to get a big developer to build a platform where Radical Collective Intelligence will be used to create a collective intelligence platform for mankind to come to. And one of the things I've been writing in my Road to Life plan work is that this platform has to be privately funded. In other words, if it's privately funded, and people would pay $10 a month or something like that, and to be able to join this website where they can help create the plan in virtual reality. But if it's funded privately, then there's no advertising. Then you're essentially separating yourself from money. So the governments don't get in there, the businessmen don't get in there, the middleman doesn't get in there. So we don't have to deal with all that stuff. And so I think one of the goals, I think, for Radical Collective Intelligence is to get this platform going And the Road to Life plan is also wants that goal to happen, because the Road to Life plan thinks that that it will be evaluated and pursued on the platform.
Very good, very good. Yeah, what I'm hearing about what you just said, Adam, is one of the goals that it be privately funded as opposed to advertising funded. Another goal is that the platform get going. What I'd actually like to talk about first, even before we get to those what I'll call details, are what do we want to achieve with the platform, and what do we want to achieve with this privately funded? In other words, before we kind of get into the weeds on those sort of what I would just call means to an end and constraints, like privately funded versus advertising funded, is what are we actually trying to achieve? And I'll take the microphone on that topic. And the big goal from my perspective is that humanity come together through this whole medium of Radish and the Social Club at the End of the World with the objective of saving as much of life on Earth as we possibly can. We're in the middle of the sixth mass extinction. Destruction is all around us. Overheating is all around us. And, we're basically in a death spiral. So the way I would articulate the goal is that we get out of this death spiral somehow and onto a road to life, to use your term, Adam. For me, that's the big goal. And that's really what I'd like to talk about, whatever other big goals. Miles introduced the goal of bringing in local initiatives and having this dialectic between individual members or participants' local initiatives and the big goals of the Social Club at the End of the World. That's, totally in line with, but you see what I'm saying about talking about goals as opposed to constraints, right? These constraints are totally valid to talk about, but I'd first like to talk about the big goals. Does that make sense? Going on mute.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense. So, what goals do you see then?
Yeah. So starting with the big goal of saving as much of life on Earth as possible, and really to facilitate that would be an enabling goal of transforming human society and civilization from its current modality, which is capitalism and hoarding and private ownership and private control, and all of the ills that has brought to us, as you have so beautifully articulated, Adam. Transition from our current modality to a whole new modality, which you've articulated very well in your Road to Life plan. So the enabling, so with the big goal of saving life on Earth, the enabling, platform, if you will, to save as much life on Earth is basically a transformation in humanity, in all of our living arrangements, and how we govern ourselves, and how we utilize natural resources. Looking at Miles's video stream, looking at the beautiful nature in the background there. How do we transform our entire set of living arrangements, which to me equates to transforming our footprint on Mother Earth from being a negative footprint to actually being a positive footprint, a regenerative footprint. So I've kind of identified two levels of goal. There's the big goal of saving life on Earth, saving as much of the diversity and quality of life on Earth as we possibly can. And then the enabling goal of transforming society, transforming human culture and our mode of production of our economy, our politics, our entire set of living arrangements. That's an enabling goal to enable the saving of life on Earth. And then, you know, there's yet another enabling goal to enable that transformation in human society, which is, for me, I call radical collective intelligence. So I sort of envision sort of a series of goals, starting with the big goal of saving life, then the intermediate goal to enable that, which is transforming humanity, and then the goal to enable that in turn being achieving a higher form of intelligence to basically help us orchestrate those two bigger goals. I don't know if that makes any sense, and I'm happy to draw pictures if that would help. I'll get my iPad connected to that end in a minute here. But anyway, Adam, I believe you're up next. Let me just verify that. Yep, Adam followed by Miles. Take it away, Adam, going on mute.
Okay, Jamin, I mean, this is the social club. That's what it's called. And it seems like your goals are directed at RCI. And is that what you want to do, or do you want this social club to be more reflective of open goals? I mean, Miles might have some goals of his own he wants to talk about. His goals going to be specific with respect to RCI and your goals and Radish goals, or is it more open?
I have a lot to say about that, but first I want to give Miles a chance to talk. This is a bit of a conundrum. So if I've just made a comment and then Adam is up next and then Miles is after that, how do we manage that? I'm going to play it safe and let Miles comment first because he's been waiting, and then I'll be happy to comment on that if that works for everyone.
Yeah, I agree, Jamin. We have to talk about the big goals, and that is, as you stated, changing humanity, you know, and we have to change ourselves individually, and then we change humanity. So the big goal is to get people energized and activated. And I'm drawing upon Sheldon Wolin, American philosopher who recently passed away at age 94. And after all of his years of being a social scientist, after being a bomber in World War II, military person in World War II, his final conclusion is passivity, being passive, will be the downfall of civilization. So it's about how do we get people, first of all, to come on to the platform, or not even doing the platform because the platform doesn't exactly exist yet, but just getting on to social media like Torstein, aka Going South, is doing. Maria shows up and comments in the chat. And, you know, many other people are trying to do something. I'm trying to get out the door. I am out the door right now, as you can see. I'm going to go back in soon. But anyway, passivity is, I think, they got to be at the top of the big list of goals. Getting people to say, all right, global power elites, you do control $50 trillion. There's 199 directors. Yeah, you've got that money. Jeff Bezos is making $250 million a day or some crazy amount. And, you know, say, all right, you people over there have that massive amount of wealth that you have all tied up. But we got to get some action happening on drawing down CO2. You know, we're at 410, maybe it's 411 parts per million today. And the longer we delay, the worse it's getting. And maybe it is a predicament, but nevertheless, even if, as Guy McPherson says, at the end of the day, only love remains, well, okay, at least we're demonstrating, walking the talk of love. Maybe it is a predicament, but, you know, if we're just passive and not actively engaging with people in a spirit of love, then we'll reap what we sow. So that's what I think the big goal is. Passivity. How do we counter that? I'm going on mute.
Good stuff. Adam, you're up next, and if you want, I can address what you brought up previously, or you can speak fresh. It's up to you. Going on mute.
Okay, well, to me, it seems like the goals. We are in the social club, right? So I think one of the goals would be awareness. So we're trying to be aware, bring awareness to people, and there's and we're focused on solutions, right? So I mean, you can go all over the internet and find and become aware of the problems that face us. But so I think we should be the place that talks about that makes people aware of the solutions that are going on. You know, Miles is doing some stuff, and he has the opportunity on here to tell people what make people aware of what's going on in his area. And you have the opportunity to make people aware of what's going on with Radish. And I have the opportunity to tell people what's going on with the Road to Life plan. That's kind of the route that I see the goals of the social club being. So I think we need to separate, this agenda says goals. Well, it's not necessarily the goals of RCI only, right? I mean, that's what I'm thinking. It's the solutions that we're making people aware of. And anyway, that's the kind of way I'm looking at it. I'll go on mute.
All right, I'll take the floor, and let me just kind of draw a picture of what I was talking about earlier. This will just take me a moment to do a screen share here. Bear with me, please. Okay, we can all see the whiteboard there. Okay, so basically what I was talking about in terms of goals is there's the big goal that I'll just put up here in the upper right of saving life on Earth, saving as much of the life, both the diversity of life, saving species, and the quality of life, and enabling that big goal is another goal, which is transforming. I'll just put transforming humanity. And I know there's some comments on the live stream, which I'll get to in a minute on that. I'm both trying to juggle moderating this meeting and then also keeping an eye on those comments, which I think I'm just going to set aside some time for in a few minutes rather than try to multitask. But I'll just put here transforming humanity. How do we transform, what I articulated a few minutes ago? Our entire set of living arrangements, where we live, how we live, what we do for work, how we travel, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that, of course, goes hand in hand with the transformation in culture, as well as a transformation in governance / politics, which in my simple mind are one and the same. Transforming the economy, as well as the very mode of production which undergirds the economy. I mean, are we going to have a mode of production of feudalism, of capitalism, of communism, of the Khmer Rouge, their experiment in Cambodia, Soviet-style communism, Cuban-style socialism, et cetera, et cetera. That's what I mean by mode of production. I'm basically talking about transforming all of this with ellipses, and but in a very intentional way, in a way that will in turn facilitate and support the saving of life and the quality of life. I think it's pretty fair to say that we've generated a lot of misery in our current modality as humanity. And in fact, I think we're largely the culprit of the destruction of life on Earth. So how do we turn the ship around? How do we get out of the death spiral? And then enabling that, my personal belief, and happy to hear other ideas as to how we might accomplish all of this, little paragraph in the middle here, is radical collective intelligence. Actually, let me restate that to something more generic, which is a higher form of intelligence and a benevolent intelligence, and that, I believe, is absolutely vital to transforming humanity, transforming our mode of production, our culture, this and that. That is a really, really big, tall order. I mean, it's enormously complex. In fact, some very smart folks, some very smart friends of mine who think about all of this very deeply, have told me, repeatedly, Jamin, there's no way you're going to influence the macro, right? There's no way in heck you're going to change, the course of history, the course of humanity, the course of Earth. It's just, there's just this giant macro with all this inertia. Yes, it changes, but it's not going to change because of the way that any one group or collective intelligence wants it to change. It's going to take its own course. So, don't even try, basically. I completely disagree with that. I believe that we can, and indeed must, invoke and develop this higher form of intelligence as an enabling goal in order to enable the achievement of this massive goal of transforming humanity, all of our living arrangements, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I hope I haven't broken my own 5-minute rule here. Let me see who's next. I guess, is anyone up next? Is anyone queued up, or am I mistaken there? Anyway, in any case, I'll go on mute.
Okay, yeah, I'm queued up. So let's just keep your drawing up there, if you would.
Sure.
So you have radical collective intelligence, which is going to go on this platform and be used, and then conversations will be recorded. When the platform is built, the developer will add a bunch of other AI and software modeling capabilities and things like that. And so it creates the collective intelligence that mankind can use to come up with the answers, the solutions to these many problems. So you're asking questions like, how do we, what do we do with government? What do we do with politics, economy, our modes of production? Why not? What I'm saying is, why not let the collective intelligence engine come up with those answers? But it's like the Road to Life plan I've written. I'm not so presumptuous to say that it's the only plan that should be examined. I think it should be examined, but I think that it should be examined against other plans as well. And then the collective intelligence can examine all the plans and put them all together in one basket and pick out the best parts, and then it can, tell us, well, you can do this, and you can have this answer with money, and it's going to take you this long to do it, and it's going to be, or you can do it this way without money, and it'll give us options, transforming humanity, our culture, economy. It'll give us options for that. So it seems to me like the important thing right now is to get the platform built and then start populating it. And then we'll start getting the solutions to roll in.
Yeah, let me just say that I actually agree with pretty much everything that you've just said, Adam. And to clarify, in case there was any confusion, what I'm not suggesting is that prior to the advent of this higher form of intelligence, which I'll just circle with my mouse here in the lower left, prior to the advent of that, I'm not suggesting that we can or even should try to figure out this middle part of transforming humanity absent a higher form of intelligence. I just don't think it can be done with the level of intelligence at which we're operating right now, we as a species, we as humanity. So I'm actually right there with you in saying, yes, we should first create this higher form of intelligence and then let that higher form of intelligence, which will include all of us, figure out this giant middle piece so that the transformation of this whole middle piece will be that which saves life on Earth, right? But in the big narrative of whodunit, it's really the higher form of intelligence that will actually orchestrate both of these subsequent phases to the upper right of it. Is that clear? I'll go on mute so you can answer.
Yeah, that's clear. But so, and the higher form intelligence, I think that's really a good point, because mankind, I think we need a Superman. I mean, you can look all over the internet, like I said, and find lots of documentaries and everything that tell us what the problems are, but you won't find many solutions. And and that's because we're running up against block walls everywhere. And that's why I say we have to eliminate money, because when you do that, you eliminate a lot of these block walls that we're running into. But beyond that, mankind needs we need Superman. We need a superhero. And the only superpower like that mankind has is artificial intelligence. So this collective intelligence platform is a way to use this higher form of intelligence so that we can come up with all these solutions, because a lot of these solutions are really complicated. I mean, you don't just use geoengineering at the drop of a hat. It has to be modeled. And it has to be very well detailed, and so that, because some of these things could affect all mankind. So we have to have some power that we can trust. And if this platform is built with no money, then there won't be that influence in there. So that's why I say it should probably be built with private money. That way we keep the advertising, we keep all that stuff out of there, and we keep the site pure so that the higher form intelligence can give us direct answers. Also, if with this higher form of intelligence working, if you add money to any equation, you're going to complicate that equation tremendously. And we're in an emergency. Paul Beckwith has come out and claimed that we are in a global climate emergency. So it's time to not worry about money. It's time to get busy and get it done. And the higher form of intelligence can help us tremendously. I think it's the only thing that people really trust. So I'll go on mute there. I think Miles has something to say.
Indeed. Good. Take it away, Miles. Thanks, Adam.
Yeah, I would agree with some of what Adam has just said with respect to getting the platform built. And that's going to take money. That money has to come from somewhere, because nothing happens, unfortunately, in this modern world without money. Now, with respect to the very first step on that slide was, we have to find this superior intelligence, this artificial intelligence, which is to be benevolent. Well, right off the bat, there's going to be differences of opinion as to what constitutes this higher form of intelligence and a benevolent intelligence. So therefore, yeah, the platform has to get built, and then we can start putting in our different ideas as to, well, what is that higher form of an intelligence? And what I'm going to put on the table, I would say, and you're welcome to disagree with me, but I started off quoting Chief Crowfoot back in 1870s here in Alberta, Treaty 7. And I honestly believe that these Indigenous people, and I think Adam would agree with me because that's his road of life, draws upon Indigenous wisdom. I think that's the higher form of wisdom. Now, people in different parts of the world will have a different perspective, but I have to act locally, and I have to start to respect that I'm a member of Treaty 7. You guys are not a member of Treaty 7, but whatever happens here insofar as what is this superior intelligence, for me, in my location, must respect something that's been terribly neglected, and that is the obligations to Treaty 7 and the Blackfoot Confederacy and the 7 different First Nations who have been mistreated and their intelligence disregarded. So anyway, just going back on mute, but point is, got to get this platform built and then go into testing so that I could use it, test what I just said. Somebody in Norway, Torsten, could test it. Norway and Greenland, people in Micronesia could test it and find out, well, what is the superior intelligence? Ultimately, hopefully, we all come to one unity in our diversity. That I'll go on mute.
All righty, I'll jump in. So just to address some of the points that you gentlemen have raised. So first of all, in terms of the super intelligence that we seek, the lower left quadrant of the image that I had just shown, I just want to be really clear. What I'm not talking about is just artificial intelligence. A lot of people have this view that artificial intelligence is going to grow and grow and grow and become the super intelligence that we need. And then, how do we make sure that's benevolent and all that? I actually have a radically different view, which is that the higher form of intelligence that I think we need and that I and Radish.org have been building constitutes a very intentionally designed mashup between human intelligence, collective human intelligence, and artificial intelligence, and that that in this particular mashup, the humans will perpetually have the upper hand, and not just a bounded set of humans like Jeff Bezos and his inner circle, for example. Not that, but rather all of humanity who are participating in the Radical Collective Intelligence, the RCI. So it's ultimately guided by humans in a very, I'll just call it a radical democratic framework, not not representative democracy, not Jeffersonian democracy, but a new form of democracy, which is enabled and empowered by the internet and all this connectivity that we have. We have envisioned a platform called Voice and Vote as part of the RCI, where all of humanity gets to vote, has the opportunity to vote and voice their opinion on any specific motion that is proposed, whether it is a local motion up in Calgary, Canada, for example, or whether it's a planetary motion that, hey, we need to do geoshading, right? That all of humanity would have an opportunity to vote on that. And that we specifically steer clear of this, any one individual or small group having an inordinate amount of power and, control over the others. We actually go to the opposite extreme of essentially a pure form of democracy. So the super intelligence, just to be very clear, that I've been envisioning, this benevolent intelligence, will actually only be benevolent to the extent that humanity is benevolent itself. But I simply don't know, it doesn't occur to me any other way of doing it other than that. I mean, yeah, we could program some AI to basically try to, to govern the world and the transformation towards this, the transformation of this middle piece in the middle of the screen here. But I don't really have a lot of faith in that happening in a way that's perpetually free of corruption. So anyway, that's what I wanted to say about the super intelligence, or the higher form of intelligence that we have been envisioning. Not to drag either of you into that though I know that Adam and I are almost perfectly in sync, I would say, on our thinking about that. Speaking of Adam is up next, so I will go on mute. On to you, Adam.
Okay, so the way this platform works, to my understanding, is you have basically the equation is AI times HI equals CI. So you have artificial intelligence, which is basically the computing process. Well, the computing process, the processors have increased dramatically in a very short amount of time, geometrically. I mean, so now we have processors that can do tremendous amount of work. We have modeling programs that can do tremendous amounts of work. And when this radical and collective intelligence, see, it's a certain type of artificial intelligence. I mean, we've heard of voice recognition and face recognition. Well, radical collective intelligence is conversation recognition. So, but that's only part of this platform. So the platform will be, when the platform is developed, somebody, whoever the developer is, like Microsoft, they would add their own programs. They would be, I mean, RCI wouldn't be the only program in the computer. So you would have the super intelligence you would have would be basically the computer. And then the other part of it is the human intelligence. So you have like a team, like a think tank, and that think tank has access to the computer, and it can, so the think tank gets the problem, and it feeds, and it asks the computer, well, how do we come up with solutions for this problem? And it gives the computer the parameters. The computer goes out and searches all the information and comes back and says, well, these are your options. Here's your solutions. And in order to keep that as pure as possible, you like Jamie was saying, we don't want unbiased, or we don't want bias. We want the intelligence to give us the best answers possible. We don't want those best answers to come back being influenced by money sources or personal interests or any other kind of influence that takes away the ability of the computer to give us the best solutions. So that's why I say that the platform needs to be privately funded, because then it's, you know, and equally privately funded. It should be like a small amount from everybody, and not big contributors. I mean, that's I'm just kind of thinking that off the top of my head here, but you want it to be set up so that it's unbiased. That's what I'm trying to say. So I'll go on mute. Thank you.
Okay, I'm up next. So I just want to clarify. I had stated that that you and I are pretty much perfectly in sync on our thinking. I just want to clarify a couple of things about what you just said. There's one thing I totally agree with, and another thing I actually disagree with. What I completely agree with is that it should not be corrupted by money. And I think, you know, that I think at this point that's, you know, I think pretty much everyone here would agree with that. Please correct me if I'm wrong. So I just want to underscore that so we don't have to keep going back to that. Let radical collective intelligence not be influenced or corrupted by money interests or any personal interests. And the second thing, so that's what I totally agree with you on. What I disagree with what you just said is about that, you know, we look to the computer for answers, or we look for artificial intelligence for answers. I just want to be clear here on the screen share here. Okay, is I'll highlight it in yellow here on the left. Radical collective intelligence, or RCI, is AI crossed with HI. So that X here in the middle is not not multiplication, it's crossing. So we're crossing together two things and creating a mashup. Artificial intelligence crossed with human intelligence, that's what creates radical collective intelligence. Yes, AI is a part of that equation, but only a part. It's not the end all be all. So my position is not, I just want to be super clear, not that we look to AI or any other aspect of the computer to come up with the answers for us. You know, answers in terms of exactly what needs to be implemented to ultimately bring about this big transformation that I'm circling in yellow in the middle here. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that RCI should be that entity, that superintelligence, which comes up with all of the solutions that we need to transform humanity and ultimately save life on Earth. So I just want to be very clear on that. And I believe Miles is up next. Let me verify that. Yep, Miles, you're up next. So take it away, Miles. Thank you.
I'd just like to put on the table something to always keep in the back of our mind, and that is that your artificial intelligence, these computers, the software and everything that's going to run on these computers must have electricity to keep them running, a grid to share it out to people. And there's a real Achilles heel, because power could go out at any moment. So there should always be a paper backup. Now, one of the things, going back to my favorite American, Ralph Nader, he's often said that he actually looks to Canada as an example when it comes to elections, because we still use a piece of paper and a pencil, and you put the piece of paper into a cardboard box, and then humans count those ballots and communicate the results. And we have elections across this country, which, I don't know, 4.5, 5 time zones. And we get the results by the end of the night. But anyway, just don't forget that whatever is created needs to have basically a contingency plan that when the power goes out, we're not high and dry.
Very good, Miles. Thank you. Adam, you're up next.
All right, thanks. So the artificial intelligence part of this, I would like to simplify that and just say that it's the computer side. It's the computations. You know, it's our ability to model is really very going to be a very effective tool, because the AHI, the human intelligence side, feeds the information, feeds the problem into the computer, and the computer gives us the solutions, solution options. And then it's up to us to decide which options we want to choose. But the computer will give, you know, anyway, I don't want to go into money again, but one of the things that Miles brought up was we need to have paper copies because the power may go out, and of course the whole internet is all of our lives is dependent on this power. So when the collapse comes, the power will probably go out, and so that one of the things that I see, and I've been writing into the Road to Life plan, is that we need to use this platform can be a place where mankind can develop contingency plans for when the collapse happens. For example, when the collapse happens and the power goes out, what are we going to do? Well, I mean, we don't have local, you know, communities. What are we going to do? Well, we don't have plans that tell us, you know, who to get a hold of to go restart the generators and stuff like that. So we need to have contingency plans, and the platform could be an excellent place to do that, so that we can transition, so that we, you know, people will know where to go to get food, where to go to get their medical care, you know, what's going to happen. We need to, and we can develop all this in virtual reality. So I see this platform as developing this contingency plan for mankind, and all the solutions for how we get out of this mess. And we develop it in virtual reality, so that it's ready when the collapse comes, so that so we have something to fall back on, because governments don't give us plans. They don't. Nobody's telling us what to do, but everybody's saying, well, the collapse is coming, but nobody's telling us what to do when the collapse happens. So this platform can help us know what to do. Additionally, this platform can be made to be very energy efficient if it doesn't use money, because if money has to be introduced into the computer equations, it complicates the computer's working time, so it makes the computer draw more energy. And so when the collapse comes, we're going to need to start a few generators and get a little bit of the internet up. And the most important part of the internet to bring up would be this platform. So if it uses very little energy, or the least amount of energy as possible, there's not a bunch of advertisements on there and flash stuff going on. It's just basic and as much as possible, so it doesn't use much energy. Then we can bring that up when the collapse happens, and people will know what to do. We'll have a place where people can meet and talk, and the localities will know what to do, and the whole world will know what we're up to, what's going on, because we don't have a way to communicate now. And so, and before the collapse happens, we need to have some plans, contingency plans put in place, so mankind will know how to restart generators, how to, you know, what to do, so we can get back online and get further directions. That's all I have to say.
Very good. Thank you, Adam. So just a couple of quick comments on that, and then I'd like to actually make a motion that we transition from this topic space to the next topic on the agenda. I've got maximum 20 minutes left till I need to bug out and do other stuff. So just to comment on that. But anyway, back to this. Adam, you had said that the computer says, here's your options, and then people choose. I actually see it, you and I may see it differently, or we may see it the same way, but just to be clear on the way I see it, is the computer does not actually generate options on its own. It's, again, AI crossed with HI or RCI that actually generates all the options. Now, the computer can model these different options, model different potential solutions, and model how the solutions can interact with each other, and we can actually ask the computer to optimize and figure out the optimal set of solutions given a specified objective function or big goal, like saving as much of life on Earth as possible. But the computer on its own does not actually generate options in my thinking. I mean, once AI gets to a point of evolution where it can start creatively generating options on its own, those will certainly be welcome. But I don't think we're anywhere near that point today. But with AI cross HI, in other words, with RCI, as is highlighted in yellow on the left side of the screen, that is where I think the action is. In terms of power and contingency plans, yes, most power is still on the grid, but there's also been tremendous growth in solar and off-the-grid power. So computing can still happen even when, if and when the power grid collapses. There'll of course be much less of it, much less power, but there will still be some. And a lot of your comments I totally agree with Adam and Miles about having contingency plans and backup plans. But anyway, I think I'd like to make a motion at this point that we go from a discussion of goals to a discussion of how we go about achieving these goals. But even before that, I'd actually like to make a motion we check in on some of the comments that our viewers have been submitting, just so that we give voice to that. So before we make those transitions, I just want to check in with you gentlemen, Adam and Miles. Are you guys good with making the transition to looking at comments, and then from there talking about how we achieve these goals?
Sure. I have one comment to make before I lose track of it. There's a gentleman, a lawyer down in California. He specializes in social media, and his hashtag on Twitter is @MitchJackson. @MitchJackson, and his law firm specializes in social media. So just putting that out there to you, Jamin, to reach out to him. I think he'd be a great individual to have as a contributor to this Radish platform. And yeah, well, let's move on to the comments.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Miles. Adam, ready to move on to comments and then a discussion about how? Okay, I think that was a thumbs up. All right, very good. So comments, let me just actually read through the comments. Beyond the hellos and whatnot, and there was some requests that we restate the rules and whatnot. I won't do that now, but this is all recorded, so you can go back and watch. Redwater says we should have a 24/7 live chat for the topic. I actually agree with that. I think that would be a great thing to have, a 24/7 live chat. What's the best venue for that? I don't know. Maybe, what we could do is maybe have some volunteers who could help lead that, and kind of have video in the foreground and chat in the background, and that way people can jump in and chat. But I think that's a great idea, so thank you for that, Redwater. Let's see. Tree Hugger says, it would be cool to have a hangout where we can drop in and socialize with others who know the difference between mainstream reality and what's real. I totally agree. In fact, that's largely what this is all about. Tree Hugger also says, at any time of the day or night, I'm agreeing with Redwater. Okay, awesome. And Redwater says, that would be great, Tree Hugger, you should start one. And then Tree Hugger says, not me, I'm technologically challenged, old and weak, and I'm too contentious. Adam affirms the idea of a 24/7 conversation. Redwater says, with 24/7, Jamin's crew could collect solutions from the chat somehow. Absolutely, that's a great idea. Okay, and Maria says, yes, YouTube. I guess it's the medium. And Tree Hugger says, if you're watching the stream on YouTube, you should see the chat comments. Okay, great. Yep, we can all see them.
Jamin, some of these relate back to the topic of people creating, or the possibility of creating live streams, not only on Hangouts, but say Facebook Live or Periscope, etc. And did you want to comment to that and how people might be able to tag Radish?
Yeah. I'd say we just have an open agenda item for what is the best platform for this to keep these comments going in a way that everyone can tune in. Whether Twitter or Facebook Live or YouTube, Google Hangouts. I don't have the answer. But I'm very open to hearing different people's suggestions. Let's see. Tree Hugger comments, enlightenment/awakening, getting fools to wake up from the dream. And Tree Hugger then later says, when you speak of how we need to transform our living arrangements, are you talking about me and my friends and ordinary folks, or are you talking about the deep state and the elite tribal groups? I'm actually talking about all of the above and all of humanity, period. Let's see. All right. There's some comments about the sea ice, El Nino. Comments about the temperatures way up north, going way over normal. Going south asks Ace Otana when it's supposed to start. Ace says it's already kicking in. Okay. Anyway, some other comments on climate analysis and whatnot. Let's see here. Okay, Tree Hugger says, the ideal of true democracy will result in women, due to superior numbers and tribal solidarity, taking the agenda away from us. Through the women, the evil tribe that uses women, nothing will get done. Just for the record, I'm a big believer in women's councils like the Tiohtià:ke system of the Lakota First Nation of the Dakotas in the United States. Tree Hugger goes on to say, everyone goes into apoplectic silence. If you want to know what's going on regarding my above comment, just invite one of the authentic MGTOW producers to speak on the subject of gynocentrism, etc. Let's see. I'm ignoring the kind of just purely offensive comments. By the way, does anyone know what MGTOW stands for? If so, please articulate. Going South comments, my new show, Taking South, is debuting tomorrow night. And some comments on the show. And
I think, if I recall correctly, Going South brings to the table the question of population overshoot. I've listened to some of his interviews on different platforms. He's on his YouTube channel. And that, that's a big topic, this population overshoot. Just today, I was listening to an interview between Tucker Carlson and a fellow named Patrick Coffin, who has a YouTube channel about the Roman Catholic religion. And they were talking about, what we need to make sure we're doing is having big families. And I'm like, what? Big families? No, I don't think so. But it's just like people's heads are in all these different spaces. And I don't know, like, am I nuts? Because to me, that's just, we need to actually get a handle on drawdown of population. We're now at 7.8 billion, which I think, when I think of the city of Calgary being 1 million, over 1 million people, that means essentially there's 7,800 city of Calgary's on the planet. Well, they're not like Calgary, but we're just it's unsustainable. And for people to say, go ahead and have big families is just craziness, in my opinion. Anyway, I digress and rant off.
I have something to say. The people's heads are in different places. So the one thing about the collective intelligence platform is it provides us with the best quality of computer analysis that can be done. So this type of analysis can can give us options for the best decisions. So if mankind's minds are all over the place, then which decision do we go with? Well, we are given the options from the computer, and with the telling us which options would probably work the best. So in that way, we can determine what the best route is, and just say, well, your route doesn't add up. It doesn't give the best results as far as what the computer says. And the computer is not biased. You're biased because that's what your religion says, or you're biased because you've got money interests in it. But the computer is not biased. So it gives us the best answers, and those are the answers that most of the population would want to go along with. So I've got something. I know we're running out of time here, and we were going to go on to how we achieve these goals. I had a couple things to say about that.
All righty. Well, I'm going to have to bug out in 4 minutes. Got another meeting to get to. So, but here's what I'd like to propose is that we put on the agenda for next week the topic of, you know, how do we achieve all of these goals, and to bring back up once again the screen share here. Let me do that of the image that I was drawing. Okay, so as you'll see here in the far lower left, the higher form of intelligence, a benevolent form of higher form of intelligence, for me, that is the one serious viable option for achieving all of the rest of the goals, as this little flow chart indicates, with the orange arrows pointing from the achievement of that goal, the achievement of actually building this higher form of intelligence, then being that intelligence, you know, just to make a crude metaphor or analogy, if we once this higher form of intelligence is created and made operational, then analogous to how, you know, a dog whisperer, for lack of better words, right, can, you know, help orchestrate the training and therefore change in behavior of a dog. Likewise, a massively higher form of intelligence, smarter than any of us humans individually, will have the ability, this is my hypothesis, I could be wrong, but will have the ability to orchestrate not just the change in behavior of one human, but all of humanity. And what's sort of an interesting conundrum about all that is that humanity itself is at the heart of, it's one of the two beating hearts of this higher form of intelligence, AI being the other. So we create a new higher form of intelligence that includes humanity, and that higher form of intelligence in turn orchestrates the evolution of humanity, including culture and governance and our living arrangements and our economy and everything else, with the uber goal of uber in the old sense, the uber goal of saving as much of life on Earth as possible, as well as improving quality of life, not just for humans, but for all species and ecosystems. So that's, you know, kind of, for me, that's the answer to the big how. And what I'd like to propose is that we develop that topic more on our next session, that we put this basically at the top of the agenda. How do we build, you know, what does this higher form of intelligence consist of? Go into some detail on that, and that will answer how we then orchestrate this big transition and transformation, which will include refreezing the Arctic, geoshading, cooling the planet, cleaning up the oceans, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, those are my final comments. I do have to go in about a minute, but before I do, I'm going to turn it over to Miles and Adam for any final comments. And in the meantime, I'll take a look at the comments in the chat window. Going on mute. So just jump in, whoever, okay. And then I got to bug out.
I'll jump in. I talked about how we need to draw down population, and Valhalla 56 asks how to do that, and I suggested check out Collapse Chronicles' recent interview of a gentleman from Voluntary Human Reduction. And then the question he poses to me again is that perhaps I'm misunderstanding or I'm underestimating grossly how bad the problem is. And he unfortunately might be right, because we are adding 90 million people per year. That's 250,000 people per day. That 250,000 per day is more than the current population of great apes that exist on the planet. So yeah, it's a really ugly situation. But at the end of the day, I'd rather say that I tried to do something than just sat around doing nothing. And yeah, I'm pretty much talked out too. It's been a great conversation. Thanks again, Jamin, for bringing this to us.
Thank you, Miles, and thanks to you for bringing this to us, because you're as much a part of it as I am. And on to Adam for your last comments, and then we'll wrap up for the day. Go ahead, Adam.
Okay. Well, one thing about reducing the population, if I write a pretty good sized section in the Road to Life plan. And if you watch the Road to Life plan video number 4 on my channel, it talks all about a volunteer system for population control. And so, I highly encourage you to read that, because it takes it's a different way of looking at it. And we use technology. And what I'm trying to say about this computer that's uses, we have this technology today that we're not using, that we can use, and it needs a big software developer to make it be used right and safely. Because artificial intelligence, there's danger there, so it has to be used right. And a big platform developer like Microsoft could make that happen. So that's all I'll say, and I'm looking forward to next week. And thank you very much, Jamin.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you, Adam. Thanks to everyone for watching and participating. I keep seeing this MGTOW pop up on the chat window. If someone would please spell that out, that would be a big help, because I still don't know what it means. Anyway, with that, thanks everyone for watching, and we'll look forward to seeing you all next time. So thanks everyone, and we'll see you next time. Thanks again. Okay, bye for now.